According to a recent study that we did with the Gallup organization, we found that community aesthetics is one of the most important factors to people's overall happiness. So please join me in welcoming FIU Associate Dean John Stuart to the stage for a conversation about design and aesthetics with Glenn and George.
I can't tell you what an honor, though, it is to be here with you both, who I've just met, but I've known you as kind of as experiences of space and place and texture and whatnot. And I know that you guys went to college in Toronto, studied design,
Toronto
and you've
again.
been what?
Toronto again.
Toronto again. I know. Let's hear it for Toronto. And I also have been following your careers for years. You've been building around the world. You have built Edition in London, the Edition, worked on the Edition in Miami, the W in Miami, and I think we were talking a little bit about your home that was published in the New York Times that's in Amagansett, and when I think about a sense of place and I think about this space that President Rosenberg and the Provost and the Dean have all allowed us to make, and it's sometimes called a Hadron Collider of people and ideas in the arts, because we will have a concert in here, and the concert will be surrounded by whatever exhibition is up at the time, or we'll have a lecture in here. And so it just so happens that we have a show of Robert Motherwell's house that he designed with Pierre Chareau, the famous French architect. Amazing. And it's not very far. It wasn't when it existed. It was curated by Alistair Gordon, whose office is right two doors down from Richard's. And the idea that things can kind of align in places and cities for you in ways that you can never really kind of predict, I think, is part of the allure and part of the interesting research, I think, that we're doing and that we're thinking about in cities right now. So I was wondering if you guys wanted to talk a little bit about what it's been like for you to design. You've designed for some of the same clients in different cities, Edition, for example, or how you approach a place. I mean, I love the Jane Jacobs shout out again in Toronto, because she was really the person who said you can sit on your stoop and you can basically, by sitting on your stoop, you form a foundation for the community that will then be what grows through creativity and innovation into a city and into a world. And I'm wondering how you guys approach cities when you come to a city. And I know you've also lived here for 20 years, so I'm going to get to the questions about Miami if you have anything.
Well, you're talking about projects and how
Yes.
projects appropriate for where they are?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so we're working on this wonderful project in Paris, the historic store. Department store, and with a very powerful client. And so we said to the client, we were thinking about if I were a Parisian, and they're kind of, most of the stores are kind of mediocre, the multi-brand stores, I would want a world-class store. Whatever that meant to me, I want something that the world has, but I want it for myself. And if I were someone coming to Paris, I want to go to a Parisian store. And so that's kind of the issues to resolve in that context. And I think you've got to distill all of that, or it becomes something that's trite and plagiaristic and boring and not appropriate, doesn't feel right. Sometimes when you make the mistake of forgetting and getting the plane down to Miami and you're still wearing your dark clothes from up north, you just don't feel right. So it's all about,
You're talking to somebody who wears a dark suit all the time, so it might just be that I'm not right up here.
But it's kind of just kind of, if you have to distill it to a point that that emotionally it feels right, rather than, oh yeah, it's sandy colored and this is the sand. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. It has to go beyond that.
Yeah. We were talking about avoiding the notion of pastiche and the cliches. And there's an advantage of that and disadvantage of that. When you're not part of it, you can easily fall into that trap. But I think in a place that has exposure to a lot of different people, you start questioning yourself, your first reaction to designing. And through your mind, you go through a gazillion ideas of how you approach it. And that's a really good thing. That's what you get in a large community.
And we talked a little bit about this earlier, and you kind of bring it up, like how you start your ideas, because we were talking about the stories
Yes.
the stories that you tell of an imaginary
narrative.
person, a narrative
Yes.
that engages kind of cities and that helps you
Yes.
to kind of place
Yes.
and think about a project. Can you tell us about
Yes.
any of those stories?
Should I give
or-
an example?
Yeah.
So we had this
We-
project in
That's a script. We
It's a-
build
make
a
a
script
script.
for
So-
each project that we do.
So we have a project in London, and the client is from Singapore, and they want to create a more casual, more forward-thinking five-star brand. And so what does that mean? Well, we don't live like our parents. We don't eat on formal tablecloths. We don't need business centers. We kind of, our life flows. We might have a bite to eat in a lobby. We might have a drink there, but and work and what. Anyway, it's all like that today. And the client says, well, it also has to have somewhat of an essence of Asia because that's where our brand is coming from. So we said, okay, let's make a story. But we're in London. So you have all these conflicting notions in your head. You say, okay, the story is about a wealthy English man who falls in love with a wonderful girl from California. And
Dick.
I forgot about
And
the
What do they do?
transport.
Yeah, you forgot
Anyway,
about
so
the
they
What
moved-
transport.
happened? We're on the edge
No,
of our
it's
seat.
Dick.
So they moved
And
to London
Charlotte.
and they built a house. It's all
Yeah.
about the building of their house,
Yeah.
but it's the
Oh, really?
context of it.
And then
Try
she
to
dumped
draw
Charlotte,
parts.
and a new girlfriend was Asian. That's
She
how we
married
did
the
it.
Asian chick? I don't
Yes,
know.
he
It was
married
something-
an
Anyway,
Asian
see,
girl.
it's-
So that's how we got the Asian thing in it. But
Well, you know what it does? It objectifies the whole process. So your client can say, well, I don't like blue. Well, it's not about you. It's about her.
Right, there you go. It allows you to kind of imprint a kind of structure
Yeah.
onto the
Yeah, yeah.
onto the project.
it's something for them to hang on to, and because there's
You
some-
tell it to your client?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
the story, we storyboard it.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
not just
And
for
we
you.
start-
You
Oh,
actually
no, no,
draw
no,
it
And we
no,
out
don't,
and
and we
no.
don't really tell the client. We just
okay.
wait. We said, before we start this, I want to tell you a story.
Yeah.
It's a story about
And
Clara
everybody
and
likes the
Dick.
story.
And they love
Oh,
a
yeah,
story.
I like it.
Yes.
Well, oh, okay.
And then
And
the
then
next,
when they
you know,
veer
the next
off-
time, the next meeting, because you realize the Asian, well, he got divorced. And he married
Yeah.
Miss Chung or whatever, I don't know.
As a team, though, how do you decide where the story's going to go? Like, if it's going to go divorce or
We are the masters.
grandchildren? Okay, so you guys don't
We
really
control-
It's a
Troll.
little bit of, yeah, being
Dun, dun,
the
dun, dun,
script
dun.
writer,
All right.
you sort of
It's all in
gear
fun, but it doesn't,
to your advantage, obviously.
Right.
Being
It
the
does-
screenwriter.
it objectifies the process.
No,
But it also
absolutely.
makes.
But it creates clarity for the team working on it and clarity for the client to follow that script. So the end
And
result is a
it-
much stronger, clear idea.
Makes something that fits comfortably and is appropriate for where it is. Like if you look at the London edition, there's some sense that it belongs in England, but it's not old English chairs. It's not this or that, and it's. I mean, it's somewhat easy in that case because it was an old building with now
Yeah,
there's
it
contemporary
had a really
furniture.
good DNA
But
to work with.
So it feels right where it is in Fitzrovia. But what's also wonderful about that hotel and also the Miami edition is that you go there and it is a social center. It's a social center that isn't segmented into little parts where this is a hotel for hipsters or this is a hotel for Marriott reward points. You go to the hotel and you'll see kids in tattoos. You'll see Marriott points people. You'll see art people. You'll see fashion people. You'll see young people, old people, and so it transcends demographics to sociographics. And I think that the key to that is building a surrounding environment, which is part of it, as well as music and service and all of those things, that it feels right. I don't know where it came from. It does have some implied history to it, but it's not literal. And it works on many levels. It can work on an artistic level. It can kind of work on a very simple level for people. And I think that's what makes great interiors is that they have that emotional resonance that you can't pinpoint it. You know, when we opened the London edition, we were with Ian Traeger, who art directed us, and Arnie Sorensen, the president of Marriott. And Arnie says, I don't understand why this works so well. We just finished the Renaissance 3 blocks away, and we did a perfect historical restoration to it, and it just
Nobody
feels
comes.
flat, and nobody comes. So it's trying to capture, our job as creators is to be creative and do something that's new,
Yeah.
but also be very surgical and because you get
And
a better
a
interior.
surgical
You get
approach,
But I think that when we're talking about kind of the small scale, but we also believe that works for cities as well. The building and adding of cities over time and filling in, you can create richer and richer neighborhoods, or you can do what happened in China and say, I'm going to demolish half a town and I'm going to build high-rises, and you'll lose.
Right. No, I think it's so poignant and interesting the way you compare. Well, I still go back to the story because I think cities are narratives. I think they're narratives of complexity. They're narratives of hope. They're narratives of tragedy. Cities in themselves are kind of our stories. And I think you mentioned this. You mentioned this too when you were talking about it. And likewise, designs are narratives. That designs can also be those things that connect you. Yeah,
I think we rely on these narratives a lot because now New York is not like we're really old. When we started,
We're vintage material.
when New York used to have a lot of grit and it was really,
They used to murder people in the West Village.
Walk
The good old days.
check who's behind you all the time, and now everything's so soft and smooth and just sort of like a little mushy everywhere. And there's a similarity to a lot of metropolises around the world, and so Glenn and I are searching for a story, a script to tell that's really engaging, and that's what we're
going to bring back the layers to it, which is
that's what we're
important.
trying to search for. It's
Was
really
Miami?
hard.
You came to Miami 20 years ago.
Yeah, I remember it's really fun. It was
Yeah,
really
And how
crazy and
is
fun.
that become soft and cushiony and
Well,
too, or
think-
not? Has it gone in a different direction than New York?
it's a money
more bottle
que-
service.
More bottle service, yes.
No, it was used to be really interesting, like skateboarding up and down Lincoln Road, and
The first,
nobody around,
first-
and only a
the
couple of
first-
bars and artists.
remember the Century
Painting
Hotel
there.
was an artist collective of 3 or 4 guys, and they did Manipulator magazine, which was a big fashion magazine. They ran the hotel. They had the great little restaurant and stuff, and that was the first. That was before the rally, before the Donald, before all that stuff. And I think that, and one of the future questions there, which you've never seen any of the questions, but one of the future questions is about.
Stephen,
sorry.
Okay,
Okay,
don't
sorry.
pay attention. I'm not
Sorry.
sure the questions
But
either.
we were thinking about some of the questions that could be asked of us, which was.
You can tell me anytime.
I think
You're
that,
in a
when
script,
you're,
you gotta control the script.
what makes great
Yeah.
cities, keeps creative people there, and there's a lot of creative people leaving New York and going to LA and other places you talked about, Nellie, but that it's a kind of money thing. You need enough money to eat, and then when people have enough to eat, then all of a sudden there's a little bit of leisure time, and the creatives can come up and make things and do things and innovate and do interesting things when there's just enough money. When the pendulum swings too fast the other way, when there's too much money, everything is monetized and sanitized, and you kind of start to lose
the
it.
art,
And
the soul, 2 days
creative
ago.
soul.
Yeah.
The creative soul moves further away.
Here.
I mean, it's interesting. It started here in Miami. It started down where Prime is, which used to be the Century Hotel, and then it moved up, and then it moved over to the Design District, and now it moved over to Wynwood, which is now quickly gentrifying. And so it's got to go somewhere, but it needs a kind of root of a place that has some context, that has some textural thing, something. It's like going to the record store. That's a kind of grounding place for a creative person for what you do. And if you're an artist, you need you need the grit and soul and energy that existed in a warehouse that you can do that, whether it's in Brooklyn or Brooklyn moving out to, where would it move, John? So it moved out further. Yeah. But and I think that's the danger because there's so much money flooding into cities like Manhattan and stuff that you lose it. And even in Toronto, blessed Toronto, the problem with Toronto is it becomes a bit
too easy.
It can become too easy, and when it becomes
sometimes.
too easy,
Works
there's no
a little
edge
bit
to
too
push
well.
Right. So
So-
where is your record store? If Nellie has a record store in Toronto, do you have
Oh,
also
yeah,
have?
we-
Like,
you
what
know
would
what?
your equivalent be?
You know what? We're lucky because we travel so much.
Yeah.
Our record store one day can be in Rio.
Oh,
Like, we can go up to the
like a gallery or
No,
something?
we
Yeah.
go to Rio
The
for
city
work,
itself.
and then we'll
Yeah,
go
the
up
city
to
Jackanyama in Tokyo or something.
yeah, these are our friends from Brazil, or up to the Santa Teresa neighborhood. It's gritty. Somebody wanted to take us to the favela one night, and there was a great bar up there, and experience the musicians and stuff. Or it can be in Barcelona, or can be those cities that are, or Lisbon, which is they're growing slower, and they have still the texture and history, and there's still the grittiness that you need. There's that balance, and it's interesting. If you go to like the big cities like China, we went to China 30 years ago, and Shenzhen was 200,000 people. Now it's 13 million people, and the city's exploded. You go to Beijing, and it's this kind of soulless city. But if you go to the 798 district, which is where all the artists are, there was a series of warehouses outside the city that were built by the East Germans in the during the war, and there's a hotbed of creativity there because it's isolated. But everything grew so fast in China and cities like Beijing that it kind of lost its heart.
Right.
Its creative heart.
And I wonder whether the part of one of the signatures, I think, of your work is just like this intense, and we talked a little bit about this kind of intense obsession with detail and with craft. If any of you go to the W Hotel and just follow the way in which the bronze work and the craft work.
Yeah.
How do you ever, going back to kind of
It's
Richard's
because you're striving for some
Neurosis.
level of
I know it's
going
a
back
pathology. I know.
to
I know.
authenticity
Okay.
gain. You need,
Yes.
because everything is all smoothed out and
I was going to ask though whether you have
glossy.
connections to the craftsmen. Like, do you?
Oh
do you-
yeah.
There's this new people who are having frustrations, people in the 20s that are really good, and they can't get a job,
Yeah.
so they have to make it happen
Yeah.
for themselves because no one else is going to make it happen for them.
Yeah.
So you find these incredible ironmongers now, for example,
Right.
or light fixture makers, because you have to. No one's going to do it for you.
People
find them around
people
the
want that. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And whether it's artists, craftspeople, artisans, paint, whatever, they exist, and they invent themselves. And there's huge desire for things made of the hand,
And you find them everywhere, right? You
They're
find
everywhere.
Anywhere
Everywhere.
or do you go to certain parts of the world to
Some
discover?
parts of the world
You just
are
find
better
them.
at certain things
Right.
than others for obvious reasons over
Right.
over a long historical period.
We were at dinner last night, and this woman was from Mexico City, and she is a marble carver. And it's great. And the Haas brothers are really hot right now,
Yeah.
the twins.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're going to work with them on a project and stuff. But you find there's lots and lots of people everywhere. We work with this fellow, Pampa, Mr. Pampaloni, that owns the oldest family-owned silversmith in the world in Florence, and he makes stuff where you go to his shop and you just fall in love with the whole thing. And I think everybody's searching because, again, because there is so much money, there's a kind of this desire of having unique things, and money is connected to creativity for
Double-edged
good
sword.
reasons and bad reasons, but it
Yeah.
is.
Well, we're kind of out of time right now, but I want to really thank you. We could have talked about art and your connection to artists, but I think you guys you do an amazing job, and you really help us to think about place and design and the spaces that we inhabit and how it helps us to think and theorize cities. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.